finally, the coach has come back to Long Drive.
I didn't know you had it in you, Steve. I didn't know you. Everybody said he's got this great personality, and when he's not hitting golf balls, he's just very good. And clearly, you are. It's a thrill for me to be on with you this week.
Well, thanks so much, man. It sounds like you're just slammed. You're doing everything now. What's new?
Yeah, it's been crazy, and I still miss Long Drive so much, but kind of COVID kind of opened up a new world for me. I was doing great. We had a lot of projects, including the Long Drive, and it kind of shut everything down. So I leaned into, and I said, for the rest of my career, if I have 30 years left, fantastic. But I do not want to be affected by COVID or a pandemic ever again. So how do I become pandemic proof? Well, I leaned into sports betting, and luckily I got in when I did 18 months ago. We've got an incredible brand at CBS Sports. I do a lot of PGA Tour golf for the PGA Tour. And then I do all the golf betting or all the betting for PFL, which is on ESPN as well. So I'm all in on sports betting, but I wish that World Long Drive would come back because it's a sport, Steve, that is perfect for betting. I mean, absolutely made for betting. So if we can get the tour back up and going, it's going to skyrocket, in my opinion, because of how big sports betting is now.
I agree. I totally agree. There's so many different options you can do, and you would know better than I because you're really deep into it. But it just seems like there's so many cool statistics that you could bet on in Long Drive that maybe wouldn't be possible in something like tour golf.
Well, think about it, Steve, for a second. The new biggest rage is live betting, meaning betting within a tournament. If you're watching a football game and somebody scores a touchdown, you can now bet as the spread changes. You can do the same thing in Long Drive. You can have head-to-head matchups, right? You can have team matchups. You can bet on who's going to hit the longest drive within the set. How many drives will be within the grid? Could it be 2? Could it be 3? You can bet over-unders. See how many different things I just named off in about 15 seconds that you could do on Long Drive. And the fastest way to grow an audience, and it's not close, is to feed into the betting aspect. Because most people who watch PGA Tour when I do it, that's all I do. Because people who tune in on Thursday morning at 10 a.m., you know what they care about, Steve? Their bet. That's what they care about. They don't care about the finish on Sunday. They care about the bet that day. The same could be said for World Long Drive or any sport. But Long Drive in particular, to me, is the sport that would benefit the most from sports betting.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I agree. And as you know, since the pandemic kind of changed things with World Long Drive, now the PLDA has kind of taken the place. Bryson is a big part of it. And it's cool to see, as you've been covering very well on PGA Tour Live, how somebody can transition from tournament golf into Long Drive and kind of be doing both. What's it been like for you to have really close access and seeing a lot of that?
Well, when I started as the voice 4 years ago, it was told to me, because that's when Kyle Berkshire had quit playing. And there were many of you out there that were really good golfers, but also wanted to do Long Drive. And then there was kind of the discussion, well, if you do Long Drive, the training is different, so you can't possibly still keep your touch around the green and for the putting and all the stuff that goes into it. I think what Bryson has done is thrown all of that out the window. He has shown that if you can win the U.S. Open, which is to me the hardest tournament in the world to win because it calls on every single aspect of your game. If he can do that, then somebody I think can be a world champion or have a world elite level of Long Drive in them and still be a really, really good golfer. Now, what I pitch and I still believe can happen, imagine if we did this, Steve. What if we did a team event? And I was told 3 years ago, it would never happen. The PGA Tour players would never do it. Well, I can tell you for a fact, because I work with them. Some no longer play, but some do. They absolutely would watch, participate in, and do a team event between a PGA Tour player and a Long Driver. It could be amazing. But I was told all their egos won't allow it. Make no mistake about it. With the PIP and becoming more popular means more dollars for the PGA Tour players. You could do the same on both sides of the fence, and it would be a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this time more than ever before, as far as I've seen in the sport, this is the time to do it. There's really, I think, a big demand from the spectators, but also, like you said, you can finally get those people in and going. So let me take it back, though.
No, go ahead. No. I was just going to repeat something I already said. Continue.
Let me take it back, because I feel like I've known you for a long time, just because I've watched you on so many different, throughout the WWE and everything. So let's go back to those days, because I was a huge fan growing up. Like up until I don't know, at least until like the mid 2000s. I just loved it. And what was it like for you to be there? How'd you get started, and what was it like from being inside?
It was the first 5 years were the best 5 years of my probably adulthood, because I didn't have a lot of cares in the world. I wasn't married, didn't have kids, all of that. And I wasn't ever planning on doing it. People don't realize that my dream was to be at ESPN, which I ultimately accomplished too. But I just took a different avenue to get there. And I'm 22 years old, and I'm working in Kansas City. And I just happened to be at the event where, tragically, Owen Hart, the famous one of the Hart clan, I guess, he fell to his death, literally like 20 feet in front of him. And so I was the only professional broadcaster in the building. Because of that, I was on Good Morning America, Larry King Live, all these big shows. And 3 months later, the WWE was starting the show SmackDown, which is now on Fox. And they had already committed to coming to Kansas City. Couldn't sell any tickets. I mean, as you can imagine, if you're a fan and you see that happen in front of you, you probably don't want to go back the very next time they're coming to town. So because of that, they reached out to me, asked me to do some things to help promote that event. And through that, I met one of their senior VPs who proceeded to help me get an interview there, said that we needed a new guy. And that's ultimately how I got the job. But I wasn't that excited about it, other than the fact it meant more money, traveling the world, somebody else's dime, and I'm in my early 20s. So it sounded like an absolute beautiful situation. And it was, until it wasn't. But I started when The Rock was starting to be at his height. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the number one guy. The Undertaker, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, D-Generation X, the Dudley Boys, Chris Jericho, all those guys were in their prime when I started late 99, 2000. In a word, it was awesome. Everywhere we went, we were all rock stars. The Rock, mine and his relationship is still very good to this day. We're not close friends, but we're friends. I mean, if he walked into my house right now, we'd be like, hey, man, we were bros. And he helped me with my style. He helped me understand that it doesn't matter where I go, what I do, what sport I do, who I deal with, whether it's sitting here with Steve Quaice on your podcast or dealing with Donald Trump when we were doing Monday Night Raw, because that happened too. It doesn't matter that you do everything to the absolute best of your ability. You give everybody everything you have, no matter what it is. And when you walk away from something, you want them to say, that guy matters, and this mattered to him. And so I've always taken that. And also from a professional performance aspect, I also learned the most from him. Timing. How do you get the audience to eat out of your hand? How do you make every single sport matter the same, whether it's the NFL or whether it's World Long Drive? It doesn't matter. And those are the type of things that I took away and I still use to this day in my performance, no matter what it is. Because to me, all of this matters. All of this matters because sports means something to me. It's the only thing I've ever wanted to do. And so I always look at it that if it means this much to me, how much does it mean to you? How much does it mean to that guy or that girl or that grandma or that grandpa, whatever it is? It matters to somebody. So it has to matter to me.
Well, it's obvious that it does matter to you. And excuse me for a second. I want to tell you real quick about my favorite training aid and a sponsor of the podcast, the Lag Shot. It's designed with what they call lag flex technology that'll help you to create and maintain more lag in your swing, which will give you better consistency and more speed, which we all want, right? But my favorite part is that you can go out and actually hit balls with it. It's a real club. They make a driver, a 7-iron, and a wedge. So you can incorporate it into your practice sessions to ingrain the better technique that it's teaching you. Once you try it, you'll see why I love it. Go to lagshotgolf.com/crush or click the link in the description below to get 15% off. lagshotgolf.com/crush. The other day, I turned on PGA Tour Live. That night, I was like, I've got a little free time. I'm going to play some video games. And I put on Madden for 20 minutes. And I had no idea. And all of a sudden I hear, hey, it's your boy, Coach. I'm like, what? He's everywhere. How cool is that?
It's been an incredible 5 years. I don't take any of the projects that I get to do lightly. I speak to a lot of high schools and colleges, and I really enjoy doing that. And the reason I do that is because the business has changed. And what I mean by that is you don't have to do traditional things anymore to earn a living doing this. And you just illuminated that perfectly in the last 30 seconds. Before, when I started in TV, it was like, you've got to go to ESPN or Fox or CBS or maybe WWE, and that's all you can do. To me now, I would never put all my eggs in one basket, ever again. But the people I deal with in transparency, and I make them understand that if I do this for you, then if I do this over here, then that helps because it's all about cross-pollination. Because right now there's so much, Steve, competition for our attention, for our eyeballs. So how do we make that happen? Well, you have people that cross over. So if I'm working for the PGA Tour, then that helps my CBS Sports show, The Early Edge, the #1 betting show in America. That helps my Madden because people like you are like, oh, he's on that too. And this will probably be my last year in Madden. I've been in it 5 years. It's been amazing. Great extra money. But it was an iconic thing to be a part of that nobody can take away from me. And at the end of the day, and I learned this from Denzel Washington. He had a great quote about, you can't take it with you. It's all about what you leave behind. So I can't take the money they paid me with me, but I can leave the game behind. Yeah. I can't take the money I made doing the PGA Tour, but I can make another young black announcer who wants to do golf. I can open that door for him, right? I can leave that behind. So that's how I think of everything now in all the projects. And right now we have 5 or 6 that are going all at the same time. But for the first time, Steve, in my entire career, and this speaks to the bosses at ESPN who can't get out of their own way, all my bosses now, they get it. And they understand, how do I let myself rise? And if that means I've got to compromise somewhere else, then that's what we're going to do. Because ultimately, we all want to do this. And I want everybody that I work with to do this and succeed and do well. And that's what all these different projects mean to me. And now we're just trying to grow them. And now we're trying to be leaders instead of followers. Instead of, well, we've got to arrive. I feel like we have arrived. And I feel like now it's an opportunity for me to help other people get into this at a high level. Because I didn't get into this, Steve, to just get by. And I want to make a difference. And when I'm done, I want people to say, that guy made a difference. That guy helped knock down a door of going from wrestling to ESPN. Never been done before. And it wasn't easy for me. But it's much easier now. We've seen 3, 4, 5 different people do wrestling and do ESPN. Those are the type of things that I think about whenever I sign on for a project. And now the centerpiece to everything I do is the sports betting. I've had 2 calls today with sports books who are looking to expand from outside of the United States. Just today. That's how big the world is getting, but yet how small it is when they contact me, because one guy said, you're the face to us in America of sports betting. Now, that's probably not true, but it's all about their perception, right? Yeah. So they watch my stuff and say, that's the guy that we want. That's where we're at right now. So you've got to embrace it. And you also have to be willing to take it, put in the work, do the work, and schedule people because your time matters. I felt awful that I had to move this around. Awful. But you understood because you're a class act. But this is the way my life is now. It's just great. But man, I love it. I love it so much.
So speaking of the work, how much time do you have that you dedicate towards like the research into how to make your correct picks, different odds and stuff like that, versus just commentating and doing all the other things that you're doing?
I do more of the research for the commentating because what I've kind of moved away from, even though I do 2 or 3 betting shows a week as far as shows that I make picks on my show, I have a whole stable of handicappers. So I don't have to make picks that much. Okay. I do one a day just for fun because my other guys are so worried about their record that they're like, I can't pick 3 or 4 games today. God forbid. To me, it's more about entertainment. Now, when I do a PGA Tour event, they have a great research staff there. I can use that information for my golf picks on the First Cut show, which I do with Mark Immelman and all the guys at CBS. So when I do make picks for that show every single week, probably I'll put in anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half because you have to look at where the players have they played this event before. How do they play on these type of courses, this type of grass, the strength of the field. Last week, for instance, the easy bet was John Rahm, but he was only plus 450. So you can't bet on that because if you bet on favorites every week, you'll go broke. So there's a lot of those things that you got to weigh in whenever you're either giving fans at home just information to use for their golf bets, or you're actually giving them a bet to play. You got to put in the time, no doubt about it.
Let me go back again to when you got into the WWE. So you were a broadcaster before that, I believe, and then you got into that. What did they bring you on originally as? Because you did a variety of things. I remember seeing you in some matches.
Oh yeah,
beating up on JR and all sorts of things. Like, what was your role when they brought you on?
So when what's kind of cool is my parents still live in Salina, Kansas, so they brought me in as an announcer because remember this is back in the '90s. they had into the mid late 90s is when they got on Monday Night Raw, and it started being every week. So they started adding shows. They only had one announcer there that did all the stuff during the week. We had a show called Live Wire on USA. We had all these international shows because people don't realize the WWE sells to 170 some countries every single week. So you got 170 countries, writing a check. That's how they make so much money. So I came in as an announcer. Then after 2 or 3 years, I became like the favorite announcer to do interviews. The problem was I'm 6'3". I walk around 240, 260 pounds. I'm a big guy. I played college basketball, put on some muscle over the years. And Vince hated the fact that I was bigger than a lot of the wrestlers. And he wanted the wrestlers to look bigger than life. It's all, again, it goes back to what did I say? Perception, right? And so he wanted The Undertaker or Shawn Michaels or Triple H to look bigger than life, which they did anyway. But they're also 6'3". We were the same height. Me and The Rock are the same height. And so Vince approached me in the gym at the headquarters one day. He's like, we have this idea. We want to make you into a character. You'd have to be willing to learn how to, we call it working, but wrestle. Yeah. Taking bumps is what we call it. And so that's what I did. I would go in every single day before a house show, before a TV show, and I would train in the ring for 2.5 hours just to learn how to take all the different finishes, the body slams, going through a table by the Dudley Boys or getting speared by Goldberg or taking a spine buster by Batista. I had to learn how to do all of that and do it safely, and knock on wood, I've never been seriously injured in the ring. And it allowed my character to develop into, I could be a heel, meaning a bad guy. I could be a good guy. I could do commentary still. So I was able to do everything. And that allowed me to still do that, but also not be so stained by the wrestling world that I couldn't get a job at ESPN when I was ready to get out. So I had a blast getting in the ring. I had a blast how me and Rock's relationship came full circle, that I became, at the beginning, he was making fun of me. And then at the end in 2007 or 2008, he came back and we had a moment in San Diego with a guy named Eugene. And it was the three of us. And I was on Rock's level, at least for that one night. So it all came full circle. It was a blast to do. People don't understand how hard it is, how tough the guys and ladies are in order to be able to wrestle 4 or 5 days a week. And that's what the schedule is, Steve. It is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, home Tuesday, right back out on the road Friday again. So it never stops. It can be a debilitating lifestyle, but man, it was fun for a long time.
I bet it was. And there have been a few documentaries that I've seen, like Undertaker's and a few others, and it shows how grueling it is on your body. But I'm sure also, even if you're not in the ring every night, for someone like you who's still traveling and doing all of that, covering it, that's got to be very tough.
And people don't understand that. They just see the bright lights and they see when you come out and you perform for 8 minutes. And then, but it's we had a rule that the shows could not be closer than 175 miles apart. So imagine doing 4 shows a week. Because when I started being a character, I had to start going to the weekend shows. Mm-hmm. So I would still do my work during the week at the studio. And then they would send me out because I was kind of that hybrid that I could be a ring announcer. And then the end of the show could be where the bad guys win. And then the good guys beat me up and the crowd goes home happy. Because what you have to remember is you want the crowd always going home happy. You want them to want to come back. So if the bad guys win, you can't do that. So I allowed for them to be able to change the show because they could let the bad guys win and then I could still get my butt kicked and everybody goes home happy. So that's what we would do. So it was a brutal schedule. You're driving 600 plus miles a week. You still got to go to the gym. You still got to stay in shape. You still got to eat good. And then I missed one Monday night in 10 years, by the way.
Wow.
And that was the Monday after I got married. Wow. Excuse me. No, the Monday after I got married, I went to the show so I could be gone for 10 days on my honeymoon. So I even went to work 3 days after I got married.
That's commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably should have known my marriage wasn't going to last when I went to the thing 3 days later. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that was also a really cool time because they had, and maybe they still do now, I haven't followed that closely, but they had a lot of like the bad guys who were the role of the babyface, right? They had DX, they had Stone Cold, like they were the bad guys, but everybody loved them.
We used to call them different things, but we'd say they had heel swag. The Rock kind of started the whole thing of liking the bad guy because sometimes people are so cool that you can't help but like them. You're supposed to not like them. But you're like, but I really do like how they carry themselves. And The Rock was the first one to do that. D-Generation X, they were terrific too. Road Dogg had this really cool rap that he would do in every single city. and the crowd would eat it up. And I'll never forget, we were in Penn State and on the second night, and we used to tape the show called Sunday Night Heat. And so Pittsburgh was the night before. So Road Dogg gets out there and they hand him the microphone. He's like, Pittsburgh, welcome to the dog house. But we were at Penn State. And so the referee, but since it's a taped show, and this shows how you have to think, Road Dogg wasn't smart enough to do it over. The referee walked up to him and said, hey, dog, we're at Penn State tonight. So he paused. And then he goes, Penn State, welcome to the dog house. And then they pop, right? And so then when it's edited and it airs, you would never know that he did it the first time because it was a tape show. So you had to think about all those types of things. But yeah, that one stands out to me because I'll never forget. It was so funny that he would make that mistake.
Let's fast forward now. How did you first get involved with golf?
So I've always loved golf. And when I got to ESPN, I wasn't like the guy that was probably going to be the golf guy, you know, and over the years I kept asking. And then a guy named Mike McQuaid, who was one of our bosses, he is the producer for the Masters, which is the first 2 days are on ESPN. And as the story goes, the Masters, the one thing I love about the tournament, they're always trying to make it better. And, you know, whether it's building in a building or whatever it is. And so they didn't have voices on their highlights on their website. So, you know, if you go to masters.com, you click on the highlights, and then you'll see Tiger Woods on the 13th hole and just hears birds chirping. And so they're like, we need voices like Tiger Woods teeing off on 13. Tiger's second shot to 8 feet. He makes the birdie putt. He moves to 3 under. That was lacking. So Mike McQuaid, they said, find us 2 guys. So that's how I did my first big tournament when I was at ESPN. And then part of the reason I left ESPN is because I'd been there 10 years. They wouldn't make me an A player, meaning I could do First Take and Mike a bunch. I probably did Mike and Mike 50 times, but they would never hand me my own show per se in a great time slot. And so I knew I wanted golf to be my future. I knew that from age 40 on that I'm not going to look this young forever. And so I said, golf it is. I love golf. I played a little bit of college golf. 2017, I did 1 tournament. And then over the years, it has grown and grown and grown and grown. Then Golf Channel called me out of the blue, offered me World Long Drive. And I thought, man, it's really starting to go. And also, I've never banged the race drum, Steve, in my life. But when your number 1 player and the most popular player of all time is a black man, I don't understand how networks in 2022 cannot have diversity and inclusion on their broadcast teams, right? If I'm a little kid and I'm sitting at home, I want to see somebody that looks like me make it to the big leagues. That's why Harold Varner III, these different players, Cameron Champ, are so vital to the PGA Tour. I am vital to the PGA Tour because we've got to have more kids of different backgrounds playing this game. It's why they've gone to all these different countries to allow ways to qualify to get into bigger tournaments here in the States. It matters, and it's long overdue, and part of my job is to make it available for other people of color to participate, whether it's from a commentating standpoint, from a playing standpoint, or just from a fan standpoint.
Yeah, it's great to see people of all kinds playing golf, all backgrounds, ages, everything that you can imagine. That's great for the game. And of course, since I'm involved in the game, I love to see that. Let me ask a little bit of a different question then. How do you, I want to ask 2 questions real quick. So first, because you've been a broadcaster your whole life, studied, I'm sure, everything, been working on all that, what do you do to perform at your best for that? I mean, do you do like different vocal exercises? Is it a mental thing? Is it both?
Anybody that watches this, the number one thing, whether it's in your job or in my job or in sports in general, and I learned this from a really, really expensive voice coach that ESPN hired years ago, it's listening. It's not how you use your voice. It's not how you speak. It's listening. Because when you listen and then you're more comfortable, you automatically sound better. I also do a lot of voice exercises before I do anything. A lot of things like this. Yeah. What it does is it widens up your jaw muscles. There's all kinds of, if a singer is going to warm up before a concert and use their voice, why wouldn't we not do this for an hour-long sports center? I've never understood that. And so I get teased all the time. I'll be right in my seat, right in my studio, and I'll do my vocal exercises in front of everybody. And if they laugh, I'll say, how long have you been on national TV? I didn't think so. And that usually shuts them up pretty quick. And so to me, it's about listening. Nothing drives me crazier than watching an interview on a golf broadcast that is just the obvious question, clearly doesn't listen to the answer afterwards, because your follow-up question should not be one that you have in the holster. It should be one based off of what they just told you in their answer. And so for me, it's all about listening. But I'm also calm enough, Steve. Now I've been doing this long enough. I have enough confidence. And for a lot of young broadcasters who get on the national TV, they get very nervous. Because now you go, well, when I was in Kansas City, I didn't have as many people watching me as I do when I'm on national TV. Throw that out the window. You're not going to change how you perform just because you're playing in a PGA Tour event as opposed to the Korn Ferry. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And so don't let it change how you perform. What you do should be good enough at any level. And that's where you need to find your comfort zone as a broadcaster or as an athlete. Get to a place where you're confident in your ability to be at the highest level. Then no matter what level you're at, you're going to fit in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Coach, I know you got to run real soon. One more quick question for you, and hopefully I've been listening. I've got about 1 million questions I want to ask, but hopefully I've been trying to.
We'll do a part 2 to this.
Sounds good. Good to me. Last question, though. What do you see? Because you're watching the PGA Tour every day. What do you see as the role of distance there now? And are you seeing people trying to incorporate some long drive stuff? What's like the perspective on it there?
There's no question that long drive has influenced the current players on the PGA Tour. We've seen Rory openly talk about it, that he threw off his own game when he tried to chase Bryson and the distance. I think there's a happy medium. I don't think you're ever going to see players put on the bulk that Bryson tried to put on. I think he's a unicorn, and that's very difficult to do. With that being said, I think players understand that the farther I hit it, because the golf courses they're not going to build 100 new golf courses in the next 5 to 10 years. So the players right now on this tour know the courses they're going to be playing, and they realize that there's a lot of places, the farther you hit it, there's less rough, there's less trees, because that's the way the courses were built. So I think power training, you're going to see a lot of that. You're not going to see really any overweight golfers win golf tournaments. And what I mean by that is it has nothing to do with them being overweight. It has everything to do with, as an athlete, you just know if you're playing 4 days and you're walking 5 or 6 miles, by day 4, you're going to be more fatigued than you are in day 1. So the better shape you're in, the better you're going to maximize your performance on day 4 than you will on day 1. That's already starting to happen. All right. If you're a player and you want to make it to the PGA Tour and have a career and not be a one-off, you got to get in shape. You got to do the work. If you do the work, that's going to get you where you need to be. And doing the work is going to cause more distance. And I think it all just comes together.
For sure. Well, we're at an exciting time, especially as a long driver and somebody who still wants to play tournament golf. It's very exciting for me. So, Coach, thank you so much for your time being on here. Where can people find you? Where do you want people to follow you? All that.
Yeah, well, I'm at the Coach Rules on Instagram and on Twitter, but more importantly, Sportsline, you got to follow them. We have all the sports betting tips or education you could possibly want, but we also do it responsibly, and we include people. We have learned, Steve, that whether it's sports betting, sports, or just life, people want to be included genuinely in whatever you are doing. So that's what we do. If you want to have some fun, you want to learn, and you just want to laugh a little bit, because it doesn't have to be serious. To me, we all live and die. Let's have some fun in between. And that's what we do.
I totally agree. Well, again, thanks so much, Coach. I really appreciate your time and your insights here.
Time, buddy. Great to see you.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye.